guys. So, November wrap up. Did a lot of reading in November. It was a lot of fun. Let's just get right into it. I started off with The Academy, which I heard a lot about, was very popular. I was seeing it all over the place on social media and the internet and everything like that. Really wanted to read it because I heard that it was Gossip Girl meets Pretty Little Liars or something like that. Seeing what people said it was about, especially beginning of November, I was very much in the mood to read something like that. So, The Academy by Ellen Hilderbrand, and she actually wrote it in partnership with her daughter, Shelby Cunningham. And from what other folks have said, you can really tell that with the references. There's a lot of newer generation references and slang and stuff like that. That put some people off. That didn't really put me off because it is a story of some very shallow high school students and almost equally, if not more so, shallow teaching staff. You know that going in and you just say, okay, that's how the story is, just kind of like Gossip Girl, like those little dramas on TV that we splurge on once in a while, and you're gonna have a fun time. Since I was going into it with the idea that it was gonna be basically a daytime high school drama, I actually liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought it was very well written. One of the students is like a social media socialite, so she's like the super popular rich one. Most of the kids are wealthy, more well off. You've got the one girl that kind of sticks out and doesn't really fit in, doesn't really flow with the glitzy girly group. Like if you watched Gossip Girl, it's the Dan character, only it's in this one it's a girl. And then you have like, you know, the rugged older dropout who's still in school but he's untouchable because of his parents, characters like that. You also see stuff from the teacher's perspective, the headmistress's perspective, and some of those relationships and stuff like that. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It was a really fun fall read. I gave that one about 4.5 stars, I believe, so I would recommend it. Again, as long as you are prepared for it to be very much a high school drama. Don't expect them to have good morals or be making good life choices. So I think that they are setting up for a sequel, which I will definitely pick up and check out. That was the first one I read. After The Academy, I picked up another book that was really popular online that I saw, and that was The Wedding People by Ellen Espach, I think. Sorry if I mispronounced that. A lot of people have read this one. It's a little bit different of a story. So the premise of the story is there is this woman named Phoebe. She just feels like she's at the end of her life. And so she has decided that she is going to off herself. To do this, she picks a posh hotel on the seashore, having one last glamorous hurrah, staying in this room with room service and stuff like that. Well, when she gets to the hotel, there's this wedding going on, and she is the only one there that's not a part of the wedding party. She comes across the bride, she meets the bride, they hit it off. Since she feels like she's completely out of her element, out of her world, she's basically saying whatever she wants to say without repercussions. She's being very honest. She's taking that opportunity just to basically be herself, because at that point, I mean, she's not going to be here tomorrow. Why be careful? And the bride actually apparently really appreciates that because she's going through a lot of stress. I zipped through this in like a day. I did very much like how the book was written. There were some instances in it that I felt were kind of unrealistic. I didn't really feel like people would have responded like that. For example, for Phoebe, the main character, when she met some of the wedding people, they immediately were opening up, like just sharing some really deep, dark secrets or, you know, whatever was going on. And that made sense to progress the story. But if you were actually in that situation, I don't know if that really would have been the case. So just stuff like that. And then there was a couple of parts that were, for me, pretty cringy. If you read it, I'm just going to say vintage car and go from there. It's just kind of cringy. Overall, I liked the writing. I didn't necessarily like certain aspects in the book, so it wasn't my favorite, but it was an interesting read. And I definitely heads up for trigger warnings when it comes to suicide and that kind of thing, because that is definitely discussed in the book. So after The Wedding People, I picked up something a little bit different. I picked up Murder at the Mena House. And this is by Erica Ruth, and I don't know how to pronounce the last name, Neuburer, something like that. But this was the first mystery that I read this month, and I very much enjoyed it. It was light. This was a very, very light read. This was set in 1920s Cairo, Egypt. It is an older aunt that takes her niece, Jane, on vacation, and they're staying in this Mena house, and a murder ensues. And then Jane is actually accused of it, so she has to clear her name. This I actually read in my first reading vlog, so if you want to see that, you can go kind of check that out. But I did very much enjoy this. It was kind of a quick read. It was a good palate cleanser after The Wedding People. I would recommend it if you're looking for something light, something fun. There was no spice, no swearing, so yeah. I believe this is a series, so I'll probably check out different ones in the series too, because I enjoyed this fun. So next, I switched to a romance. One of Catherine Center's books, What You Wish For. I really liked this. Catherine Center has become a favorite author for me. Her books, very little spice in her books from what I remember, especially this one, like some kissing scenes, and that's about it, which was refreshing. This is about Sam, a librarian at a grade school. They get a new principal because of reasons, and I will warn you, right in the beginning, something happens that is pretty intense, so just kind of heads up on that. And because of that, they need a new principal. The principal that comes in is actually a man that she has worked with before, his name being Duncan. I really, really enjoyed this one. It had some deeper parts in it. I feel like Catherine Center does a really good job of giving her characters some serious issues that they need to work through. And I appreciate that, because then you can kind of see how friends, family, how they're healing, how they're building after hard times or through hard times. It's not just necessarily just a light, fluffy romance with nothing else to it. She does put a little bit of meat in there too, which I very much appreciate. I go a little bit more into my reactions in my reading vlog, but I remember this literally made me laugh out loud. I think I was yelling at the book at one point, and tear up in some of the deeper scenes. Highly recommend this one. This one I gave 4.5 stars. I didn't do a full 4.75 or 5 stars because I might be wrong on this. But I feel like towards the end, there was a time discrepancy in the storyline, which bothered me. But when I looked up reviews, I didn't see anybody else catching it. So I might have just been me. I might have mistaken it. Because of that, I couldn't really resolve it. So that dropped it down a little bit for me. But Catherine Center, she's solid. She's good. If you're looking for a good romance, she's a good one. I recommend. So the next book that I finished, I actually started the Bridgerton series a couple months back. Disclaimer on the Bridgerton series, it is just your cheesy, guilty pleasure romance. Don't look for a lot of depth necessarily. The writing style has gotten better over the books, I felt like, but definitely the first one, the writing style was a little cringy for me. And that's just me, but yeah, it was a little cringy. So the next book that I had finished is actually Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, which is number 4 in the series by Julia Quinn. It wasn't my favorite of the series, if I'm honest, which is a shame. It follows Colin and Penelope, and I really love those characters. And especially since I've watched the TV show too, kind of made me a little sad that like, I liked them. I wanted to really love it. But when I was really honest about halfway through, the way they treated each other and were responding to each other really was not the healthiest. He would get angry and they didn't really communicate the best. And so I gave it 2.75. Still probably going to continue the series just to see how the story progresses, because I'm curious to see how the other siblings get paired off. So amongst classics and modern books, romances, mysteries, things like that, I also like to read Christian books just to increase my faith, increase my understanding, keep learning, keep my head in the Word of God and in spiritual matters and things like that. So the next book I finished was actually one of those, and that is How to Heal the Sick by Charles and Frances Hunter. If you don't know about this awesome couple, they were called the Happy Hunters. They had a ministry back in the 1980s. Sweet, sweet couple. If you look them up on YouTube, they have a bunch of videos. You can see them praying over people. You can see miracles happening. I will warn you, it's 1980s. It is very 1980s vibe. very, very cheesy. But that being said, this book, if you're a Christian and you're interested in healing, I highly recommend it. It is a compilation of their personal testimonies that they've witnessed from praying from people, the things that they have learned over the years and witnessed over the years. They would teach people how to heal the sick because, you know, in the Bible for a Christian, it says believers will lay hands on the sick and they will recover. So that is a thing. So if you're interested in healing, highly recommend this book. Great faith booster, great kind of how-to to get your feet wet in it. And then if you are believing for healing in your body, it definitely helps with your faith on that. So the next book that I read, that was No One Was Supposed to Die at This Wedding by Catherine Mack. This is the second in her series. I loved the first one. The first one was called Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies. And that title cracked me up. I saw it on a podcast. They recommended the book, and as soon as I saw the title, I was like, oh my gosh, this looked like fun. I want to read this. So the first book was really, really fun. Second book, also really, really fun. I feel like the second one was a little bit more mystery and less action than the first book, if that makes sense. The main character of these books is also the author of the book that you're reading. And in the world, she's a very famous author. She has this whole string of, I think it's like mystery books. And she fools me every time because in the beginning, she has recommendations for these fictional mystery books. And it happened the first time and it happened in the second book too, where I read it and I'm like, oh, I need to add that to my TBR. I'd like to read that. And then I read the first couple of pages of this book and then realize, no, this is a fictional series. This series does not exist. This is just in the book. So it very much breaks the fourth wall all the time. Even when you open the cover, inside the covers are like notes of how to improve the book, the story, the cover for like her editor or whatever. And it's just a different way of telling the story, and it's a lot of fun. Definitely different than any other book I've read. She also puts footnotes in. So it's basically kind of like an aside to you, the reader, which is very, very fun. So it follows up after the first book, and basically what happened in the first book is being turned into a movie. Her best friend is getting married to this really famous actor guy, and her best friend is an actress as well. And they're on this island and a hurricane is coming. Murder attempts are happening. Somebody actually does get killed. So then they're just trying to figure out what's going on. Because of the hurricane, no one is there. Very few staff at the hotel. So it's kind of a locked in mystery type thing going on, which is a lot of fun. Yeah, if you like quirky, if you like kind of different, off the wall, fun, I gave it 4 stars. I liked it a lot. These are very quick reads because the writing is a lot of dialogue, so you actually can get through quite a bit pretty quick. But these are pretty solid ones, and these are ones I recommend. I enjoy a lot, and I'm very much looking forward to, there's a third one. I don't know if it's out or it's coming out, but I am going to try to get that as soon as I can because this is a fun series. So I'm realizing I read a lot of series in November, so that's kind of fun. So the next book that I picked up was actually recommended to me by one of my very best friends. I was actually at the library and I was texting with her, and she told me, hey, look for this book. I'm currently reading it and you should check it out. And it's a murder mystery set in Mackinac Island. 2 things that will definitely get me to check out a book because I am originally from Michigan, as is my friend. So she knew that I would absolutely love it. This is called This Is Not a Game by Kelly Mullen. This one was very similar story setup generally to the Murder in the Mena House, because you have an older grandmother who lives on Mackinac Island, and she starts getting blackmailed, and she's supposed to go to this big posh party in the middle of the winter to an acquaintance of hers that also lives on the island who has sent her a blackmail note, and she doesn't want to go by herself, so she contacts her somewhat estranged granddaughter Addie and has her come to visit her. So the grandmother, Rosemary is her name, but she goes by Mimi. Their relationship is not the cozy, fuzzy kind. Mimi, the grandmother, she's very kind of prickly She's really kind of edgy. She loves her granddaughter, but doesn't really give big hugs and stuff like that. She's not warm and fuzzy. Meanwhile, her granddaughter, Addie, is going through quite a bit of a heartbreak. She designed this murder app game with her boyfriend, and then they split, or he dumped her or something like that. And so he's basically not only messing up with her love life by dumping her, but he's also taking the game and trying to take all the rights and mess her up in court with her job. And it's cut her confidence, and so she's not in the best place either. Because of the murder mystery app, she uses that as experience to help when stuff starts going down in this big mansion that they go to for the party. There's this blizzard coming in, they get locked in. Kind of the same idea, honestly, a little bit as No One Was Supposed to Die at This Wedding, except instead of a hurricane and a tropical island, we are on a very untropical island up at the very tip of Michigan, and a blizzard is coming through. So the island is cut off from the authorities. They're stuck at this mansion, and people are starting to die. So they're trying to figure out who done it, all that jazz. This is not quite as light as Murder at the Manor House. It's not super gritty, but it's got more grit than Murder at the Manor House. And there were a couple of parts that I felt went a little darker than what I kind of felt like the overall book's tone was, but that's just me. There's also some new age stuff which I didn't really get a kick out of, but fair warning. But overall, very Knives Out mystery, bit Agatha Christie type tone, only definitely more modern. I enjoyed it. I did get a kick out of this book. It was fun. It kind of felt like you were back in like the mobster era. It's modern day, but there was some rooms in the house that were very vintagey and that kind of thing. So if that sounds like something you would like, then I would say check it out, because I had a lot of fun with it. So I'm getting down there, I swear. After This Is Not a Game, I picked up The Bookshop on the Shore by Jenny Colgan. It's actually not about a bookshop. It is a bookshop, but it is a bookshop out of a van. And this is actually, I didn't realize this was the second book in a series, but that was okay, because I said it was a standalone, and it was a standalone. One of the characters, I believe, was the main character from the first book, and she actually is the one that has the van with the books. This one follows a woman named Zoe who lives in England, and I will say this is a British book. It's very much, I mean, there's so many British references and terms of speech and ways that they talk. That was actually a lot of fun to read, because, you know, you don't really get to see that as much in America. That part was fun. I wanted to love this book. I think the reason I didn't was I was really wanting a feel-good kind of bookshop, hug in a book type cozy feel. While I feel like ultimately the story did get there, I just remember a good portion in the beginning, it was just kind of low. I wouldn't say it was full out sad, but our main girl Zoe, she's not having a fun go of it with life. She has a little boy that she loves, and the dad is kind of a deadbeat. He doesn't really do child support. He doesn't really help him out, and they're in the middle of London. And so basically she hits a point where she knows that she needs to make a change. She answers a job advertisement that she hears through folks of being a governess, a European governess, and also helping to run this book van up in the Highlands of Scotland. Setting is beautiful. This seems like a setup to a beautiful story. And so I was kind of disappointed to not love it and enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to, because it was such a slow start, and it was so kind of, everything was bad. Her situation in London was bad, and then you're thinking, okay, well, once she gets to Scotland, it'll get better. And it does, but not right away, which, I mean, that is realistic with life. Let's be real, let's be honest. It is. So I get that. I was hoping to see a little bit more glimmer of hope. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more encouragement for our main girl with some of the folks that she met, and she really didn't get hardly any, if any, encouragement from the folks that she met. She just kind of plowed through, and ultimately it did work out very well, of course. The writing style I liked. I enjoyed actually reading the book. Just be forewarned about that if you pick this one up. It is a good story. It's not a hug in a book necessarily. She definitely is going through some stuff, and she definitely works through a lot of stuff through the majority of the book. And then definitely towards the end, there were some choices the characters made that I didn't, was kind of on the fence about, but, is what it is. I gave this one about 3 stars. So take with that what you will. So this month I read 10 books. We've gone through 9 of them. The last book that I am counting to be in November, because the majority of what I read in it was in November, is The Beast. That is Anna Karenina. And I read a portion of this in my first reading vlog. My second reading vlog was about finishing this off. You can get even more info on what I thought about it at the end of my second reading vlog. Overall, so happy I picked up this classic. I was hesitant to because it was so thick, but I knew I was feeling it, and I just took the plunge, and I'm really happy that I did. This was over 700 pages, which is the biggest classic I've ever read. It's the first Russian literature I've ever read. It's the first Leo Tolstoy I've ever read. Wasn't sure what to expect. A lot of people told me different things when it came to Tolstoy. He can be rather wordy, although not gonna lie, I kind of think J.R.R. Tolkien got him beat. If you read the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Tolkien, bless his heart, he goes on and on about the woods and the trees and stuff like that. At least in this book, maybe in his other ones, he might be more detailed with stuff, but with this one, I felt like it wasn't too bad. So Anna Karenina is about a handful of characters, Anna being one of them. She actually isn't the main, well, there's not really a main character. There's like 4 or 5 main characters that you see from their points of view. So when Anna comes to visit relatives, she meets a man that she is instantly attracted to, and she's already married. And so it takes a little while, but eventually the two of them start to have an affair. From their storylines, the majority of it is just them navigating this affair, and then how it affects her husband, her life, what they decide to do, things of that nature. That's like Anna's storyline. She wasn't my favorite character. She was very charming. She was very engaging. I understand why so many people in the book were enamored by her, but especially by the end, it was just a little frustrating because she had developed into such a selfish mentality that it was really hard for me to really root for her because of the decisions she made. She kind of set herself up where she was in like a lose-lose situation, when the situation that she had created for herself, which was not very steady, was not a strong foundation, crumbled. It definitely affected her greatly and those around her. So the other characters that you follow that I actually really loved were Levin and Kitty. And it was a young couple that they had a falling out in the beginning, and then they got together, and you just see their characters as they develop through the book. Overall, the book was a really fun read for me. Parts of it reminded me a lot of like Jane Austen type vibes when they talked about like the social situations and the relationships and the friendships and the decorum and the dramas and things like that. There was a good chunk, especially in the middle, where the guys talked about politics and economics and philosophy and things like that. The philosophy I could appreciate. The politics and the economics I could kind of appreciate, but like I said in my other vlog too, I don't have an in-depth knowledge of exactly where Russia was with their political climate at that time. So I would find it very interesting to talk with someone or go through this book with someone who does, because it would be curious to see where these characters were actually coming from, what was actually going on in the world, and how it affected them, and you know, just stuff like that. So this would be a really fun one for a book club. Definitely read it when you have the time to read it. I enjoyed reading it. I highly recommend it. I think it was a lot of fun. If you are in a classics mood, if you are in kind of a Jane Austen, Charles Dickens, if you're in that kind of mood, I think you would enjoy this. The 2 hardest things about this book was, 1, the names are very Russian and they're long, and there's multiple of them. If you find a translation that gives you a name cheat sheet in the beginning, that's wonderful. If not, consider making your own cheat sheet to keep the characters straight, because I think that would definitely help. The second thing, this thing is heavy. Holding this thing up was probably the second thing that was the hardest for me. I did try to download it on my Kindle because you can get classics on your Kindle pretty quick, but what I noticed was the translation was different and it wasn't quite as good. So I only did a few chapters in the Kindle because I actually really enjoyed the book better. So anyway, that brings us to an end. That is it for November. I can't believe that I got through 10 books, 9 books, and Anna Karenina. So that was cool. That was pretty cool. We are now into December, so I am reading stuff actively. If you would like to see more so, follow me on Instagram. I'll have the link for that in the description of this video. I hope you guys are having a great holiday season, and check back because I will see you next time. Bye.